My name is Chris Thurton, and I'm just hyped. I'm excited. We're talking about relationships. We're talking about love. We're talking about romance. Talking about the risk in relationship. And I just want to say real quick, we might say that. We might say romance or love, relationships, whatever that is, and you might tune out because you might be like, hey, but I'm single or I'm not in a relationship. Honestly, a big theme of the night as we have dove into this. I want you to hear, as a staff, we have been talking about this a lot. And as we have dove into this, honestly, being healthy in a relationship starts with being healthy outside of a relationship. Fantastic, y'all are on board. So, when we talk about, tonight as I talk about relationship, I want you to know all the things that we're saying are just applicable to life. They're just good things to know. And it just happens that when you're in a romantic relationship, they still matter. And for whatever reason, I feel like we get into a relationship and everything goes off. It's like, I forgot how to do things. I forgot how to talk to people. I don't get why that happens. I do get it's hormones, but it is. But we're gonna talk through things tonight about being in a relationship, and I just want you to know wherever you're at in the room, it's applicable to you. I also want you to know, me and Brooke, we're gonna give this talk together, and for circumstance, she wasn't able to be here tonight. She's fine, but she's just not able to be here. So I'm gonna do my best to articulate for the both of us relationships. So I'll do my best, bear with me, give me some grace. I know it would be 1,000 times better if Brooke was here as well, because she's just the best. That's right. There's your first tip in relationships. Compliment your significant other. The other thing is, me and Brooke are in a heterosexual relationship, and that is how we have experienced relationships, so that's how we're gonna talk about it. But I want you to know, if you are a part of the LGBTQ plus community, or if heterosexual relationships aren't just your thing, it's still applicable. I think relationship translates. And so when we talk about how you interact in that, it translates as well. But we will be talking from a guy-girl perspective, because that's what me and Brooke are. So there you go. I feel like I'm giving so many disclaimers around. My other disclaimer for the night is I just want you to know that when it comes to dating relationships, this is just like a big brother talk we're giving right now. Like, so much of this is gonna be my opinion. I'm gonna be honest, the Bible doesn't really say much about dating. Here's really our two kind of examples. One, Song of Solomon, could be dating. Seems more like courtship, but there you go. People have argued that. The other thing, this is actually like the most tangible example of dating in the Bible, is Samson and Delilah. And if you don't know that story, it's not a healthy relationship. It's not. Go read it. It's crazy. It's crazy. So dating is like actually kind of a new construct. I'm such a nerd. I went and looked up like the history of dating and everything, and it's like maybe 150 years old, maybe. And dating really started happening and coming into practice when women started earning their own living independently of men. Way to go, women. And we do love that, but it kind of was weird at first because women's identities had been so caught up in men's identities. At first, when dating started, the police thought it was like a weird form of prostitution because people were exchanging food for relationship. And so like people were arrested for going on dates. Wild. So there's like a weird history with dating, which is just crazy. You can go look it up. It's just Google history of dating, and it's like the top 3 things that come up. But we've progressed, and dating has become a part of our culture. And really, I think a barometer for dating that people kind of to go along is dating. We date to try and figure out who we're going to get married to, and that's why we date. I want to maybe change a little bit of that narrative to say our objective in life hopefully should be to be healthy, and as followers of Jesus should be to know Jesus more, because that leads to being healthy. And our dating perspective should be, am I healthy? Is our relationship healthy? Not, am I gonna marry this person or am I not gonna marry this person? Because if you're healthy and your relationship is healthy, you will gradually move towards marriage, and that'll be great. Or you'll gradually move away from marriage, and that's also great. And you will be seeking out health. There you go. We could go home right now, because some of you, you're like, mind blown. Okay, I know it, you're quiet, and when you guys get quiet, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many thoughts going through my head. Okay, and like I said, this is gonna be a majority opinion. So I want you to know this isn't just my thoughts. We sat down as a staff and talked about this a lot. And a lot of what we're saying, what we go through is, what I'm gonna go through tonight is just collective thoughts that we've had as a staff on what dating and relationship can look like. And like I said this so much, it's opinion. The Bible doesn't give concrete facts on how to date. And honestly, when Paul, who wrote half of the New Testament, starts talking about relationship, literally in the Bible, he says, you can look it up. He says, this is my opinion. He says it in the Bible. He writes it down. This is my opinion when it comes to relationship. And then he goes on to say, you shouldn't get married because you can do more good work single than married. That's what Paul says. So really, if you want to get biblical, I'll get up here and tell you, don't get in a relationship, be single, you're gonna do way more productive work alone. But that's not the likelihood for most of us. And I want you to hear in that vein, another misconception I think that a lot of people have when it comes to dating is that when you come together in relationship, like all your problems will be solved. Or at least like, if they're not all solved, you will be on the trajectory to solve them. Or if you get in a relationship, like 75% of my problems will be solved because the other 25%, I know that's gonna be there. And then you think, oh, I'm healthy because I know that not everything's gonna be solved. I want you to hear this. This is my big brother advice, so you don't hear anything else. One broken person plus another broken person does not equal perfection. And we're all broken people. We all got issues. Say that. So look to your neighbor and say, I got issues. Wow, I did not say look to your neighbor and list off your issues. I just said, say I got issues. But for real, I want you to hear this. One broken person plus another broken person just equals more problems. It just equals more. And so what you have to do is you have to learn. You have to learn how to communicate. You have to learn about yourself, about who you are, about who the other person is, and figure out how you navigate life together. It doesn't mean that everything's just gonna be gravy and easy. And I think a lot of you that have been in relationship in your life recognize that once you get in one, it doesn't mean life is easier. Looks like Janelle just learned that. Good job, Daniel. I see you, bro. That means you've been doing good in your relationship. All right. Y'all, this is a longer intro than I anticipated. But as we talked as a staff, we kind of figured that we'd break this down into 4 different things. And I want you to hear, I'm not gonna solve relationship stories tonight. I'm not gonna hit everything tonight, but I really hope that tonight's a catalyst for our community. I think that as we've talked about this as a staff, we've realized that our community has a difficult time actually talking about and dealing with and engaging with relationship. And I think part of that is we don't actually enjoy living in the tension of things, and relationship can be a tension-filled conversation. There's emotions, there's things that are that we're interacting with, that we're dealing with, that we're learning about ourselves and other people that can be difficult, and so it's hard to step into that and talk about it. And so I hope that tonight we kind of hit through some different things that can just give you language and give you opportunities to be able to have conversation with the person that you might be in a relationship with, or with other people in your community that you can learn how to better be in a relationship, or if you're not in one, that you can just continue to grow into the person that you are called to be. And that's all we're trying to do, whether you're in a relationship or outside a relationship, is continue to grow into the person we are called to be. Sound good? So we broke it down into 4 different categories, and we're gonna look at the purpose of relationship, what health looks like in relationship, what vulnerability looks like in relationship, and breakups. Fun. But before we get going, I think we need prayer. I know I need prayer, so let's pray real quick. Jesus, thank you so much that we get to be here. God, it is true. I just pray that I pray that we would that you would give us some good information tonight. I pray that you would inspire us tonight, give us some good inspiration. But ultimately, God, I pray you would reveal yourself to us. God, I pray for revelation. And that as you reveal yourself to us tonight, God, we would know more who you are and know more who we are and what it looks like to live into the weird and crazy existence of relationships, God. God, whatever's from me, I praise for God, and whatever's from you is on our hearts, God. And we just lift this night up to you. In your name, amen. Amen. Okay. Why do we step into relationships? I want to start with a quick little story about me and Brooke. Fun. So when we first started dating, we would go on dates, and which is a good thing. We would go on dates, and I want you to hear Grant. So Grant Gustafson brought this up. God is excited about you. Just hear that before anything else. God is excited and loves you. And so if God is excited about you and loves you, then he's excited about your dating life. Okay? Because that's a part of who you are. So God is excited about that. So when me and Brooke were dating, I always thought it was funny that whenever I would, we'd finish a date, and then I'd be like, this was pretty good. Do you want to go on another date? And Brooke would be like, yeah, this was cool. I would love to go on another date. Do you want to go on another date? And I kind of look at her puzzled like, yeah, that's why I just asked you if you want to go on another date. And she'd be like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, let's go on another date. And it always cracked me up. But it gave me a glimpse, and it gave us a glimpse a little bit into who Brooke is in that and the insecurity that she was carrying in relationship, right? And so I had already affirmed that it was a good date. I had already affirmed that I wanted to go on another date. But there was still this sense of, but are you sure you want to go on another date? If any of you watched The Bachelor this week, my guy, I didn't actually watch it, but I got home last night and Brooke was like, here, let me give you the highlights. And so we sped through it, and she made sure to show me this part where, I don't want to spoil it for y'all if you haven't seen it. But Peter asked someone, are you sure? Interesting. Sounds like they got some things they need to work through. But that's all right. All right, this first question, purpose. Why do we step into relationship? Can we bring that up there? That first question. Purpose. Why do we step into relationship? I want you to hear this. So, like I said, this is a big brother conversation now. So I'm going to take you through me and Brooke and our story and why we stepped into relationship. And for us, I'm going to actually read to you the passage, the little piece of scripture that was from our wedding. And, thank you. And for our wedding, we chose this verse from Colossians chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. And these two verses, they go like this. For God was pleased to have his fullness dwell in Jesus, and through Jesus to reconcile himself to all things, whether things on the earth or in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in Jesus, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. You might be thinking, what does that have to do with romance and weddings? Let me tell you, for us, we believed our relationship was about reconciliation. Not just racial reconciliation, me being black and her being white, but we believed that it was about starting something new. And my view of reconciliation is that it is not just one party and another party coming to an agreement and moving forward. And it's not just one party kind of acquiescing and just giving into the other party's demands. But reconciliation is truly one party coming together with another party, laying down everything in the center and moving forward into something new. And moving forward into something new. And what we believe about what Jesus has done is that he is reconciling everything to himself. We believe that as followers of Jesus, that this is a broken world. That there's brokenness between God and human beings. There's brokenness between human beings and other human beings. And there's brokenness between human beings and the world itself. And what Jesus is doing is reconciling all things, taking it and putting it all on the table, the good and the bad, the mess of it, and saying, let's create something new. And for me and Brooke, when we got married and our whole relationship was kind of a mess and kind of just butting heads a lot. And we knew that for us to move forward in the love that we had for each other and the love that Jesus had for us, that it was going to take some real reconciliation and building something new. And I ultimately believe that that is the purpose of a relationship, to build something new, to redeem that what was broken. I want you to hear, there's a nuance there. It's not to redeem the brokenness within inside of you by being with another person, but it is to see the relationship played out in an earthly way that God has for us. And that's the purpose of all relationships. Your friends, your family, and maybe your boyfriend, girlfriend, or spouse. That it would be reconciling and redeeming and showing the truth of who God is. Sound good? That's the first purpose of a relationship, which is funny because how many of y'all just get in a relationship for that reason? I'm sipping tea metaphorically and literally. We get into relationships, I think, for so many other reasons. I talked on friendship last week, or a couple weeks ago, and when I talked on friendship, what was the first thing I said that we get into friendships for? It's for selfish reasons. It's for neediness. It's for connection. And I think that's a lot of times we start romantic relationships for that. Oh, I'm lonely. There's something missing in me. Oh, but this person's funny, so I want to hang out with them more, and maybe I'll kiss them. Tell me that's wrong. Tell me that's wrong. I know that's happened. I know that's happened. I could go off and list a bunch of reasons why we get into a relationship, but y'all know them because it's the brokenness in who we are. Is why we get into any relationship, and that's not inherently bad. But when it's the identity thing, when it's the root, when it's the thing that's looking to give us life, it's gonna let us down. And what did I say before? One broken person plus another broken person does not equal perfection. So if we're looking to get life and the source of life from someone else who's just as broken and messed up as we are, we're gonna be let down. Does that make sense? I'm coming out hot. But I want you to hear is that as you step in a relationship, and I hope you do, be aware. Be aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you're looking for. And ultimately, my hope is that as you step into a relationship, it wouldn't just be that you have your whole life figured out and you're just like a beacon of health, but that you'd be healthy enough to be aware of where you're messed up. That's it. When me and Brooke started dating, there is no way in hell that we were healthy. And when we got married, newsflash, we weren't fully healthy then either. But we knew where we weren't healthy. And we were working on it individually and together. And so together we felt a collective call on our life to move forward into dating and then move forward into marriage. But it wasn't just to fill this need that either of us had. But it's because we knew we did the work. And so what I'm gonna say to you right now is whether you're in a relationship, not in a relationship, looking to get in a relationship, whatever it might be, do the self-work. Look into what's going on in you. I think one of the big mistakes we make when we get in relationships is we all of a sudden think we're an island. All right, now it's me and this person against the world. No. Especially dating, you're still you. They're still them. And y'all are now trying to navigate what life kind of looks like together. But you still have all these other people in your life too. And all the other things in your life as well. And you gotta be aware of that. Sound good? On board? We now have more clear purpose of relationship from where I'm coming from. You might have a different one. That's all right. Again, this is my opinion, but I want you to engage with this thought. I'm digressing. Good gracious. I'm sorry, Mike. I want you to know, as a pastor in this community, my hope, honestly, is that I would not just give you all the answers. My hope is that as you leave from interactions with myself and with our staff and with this community, is that you would be critical thinkers. That you would be people that have learned how to think for yourself. That you would be people that have learned how to now ask the right questions and to seek out Jesus and to seek out self-knowledge and then to seek out how to relate to yourself, to God, and to those around you. But it's not that you would just hear what I say and say, oh, well, he's got it all figured out. I'm just going to do everything that he does. I want you to be better thinkers. Because like Alan preached last week, the head can move to the heart, can move to the action, which is good stuff. Thank you. All right. From purpose, we move into health. So moving into relationship, I think to get into a relationship and for a healthy relationship, you have to start with self-health. So what's fascinating to me was something that's really interesting. We get asked this question all the time. How do I make my relationship godly or centered on God? I'm dating this person and I just feel like our relationship isn't centered on God. This might sound harsh, but if your personal individual life isn't centered on God, your relationship won't be. For our relationships to be God-centered, our lives have to be God-centered. So when we get into relationships, or if we're in relationships and we recognize that God is not at the center, that's not the relationship's fault. That means we, individuals in the relationship, have to now take a look at our own hearts and figure out, where is God in my life? And I tell you, it's a whole lot easier if we start to do that work before we're in a relationship than when we're in a relationship. So I want you to hear, putting God at the center of your relationship starts with putting God at the center of your life. So for any of you guys who have asked us that question, that's my answer. Start there, and you'll probably see the rest start to take shape. It doesn't start with just reading the Bible together or praying more together. We're going to get into that later when we talk about vulnerability. Those are going to be expressions of what God is doing in you, and it's going to come out in your relationship. That sound all right? Thanks, Janelle. I appreciate your little yeses. That's helping. Okay, health and relationship. How do we stay healthy personally and together? I already said it, but health and relationship starts with personal health. The interesting thing about when we get into a relationship and we think we're just on an island now and it's just us is something, this fun term called codependency. Whoa, that hit somebody. Codependency hit somebody. Let me dive into this a little bit. I can say codependency, and a lot of you might be thinking about your own relationship, or you might be thinking about your friend and their relationship. Codependency isn't just a romantic thing. Codependency is anytime we place our identity and our health onto somebody else. And now they are the thing that makes us healthy or gives us our full identity. So that could be a friendship. I know people and I have friends that have been in codependent relationships that aren't romantic. It's just friendships. And they don't know how to live life apart from someone else for like a day. It's like, yo, you're your own person. Relationships are good. And I want us to have them because they help us and we're all about them here. But I want us to recognize when we're becoming codependent on somebody else. And I don't want you to hear this as like, oh, it's good to not be codependent and it's bad to be codependent. All I want you to hear, because we're all gonna have levels of depending on other people, what I want you to hear is be aware of when you are getting to that space so that it can be like a little alarm going off in your head of like, oh, something's off in me. Something's not healthy right now. I better look into that. And I want us to get away from thinking, oh, this is right and this is wrong. This is good and this is bad. Codependency is not like, oh, codependency is bad and not being codependent is good. You hearing that? It's a range and it's a spectrum and it's different for all of us. And relationships is such a hard thing to talk about because there's 300 people in this room. So there's 300 different ways to do relationships. And so it's gonna look different for each of us. So I can't just tell you a blanket statement like, hey, when you are texting 17 times a day, that's codependency. I don't know what that is for you. But what I am saying is be aware. And when you're recognizing, oh, you know what? My self-worth is dependent on this other person. Ding, ding, ding. I should probably check something. Does that make sense? Okay. Healthy relationships. So that does play out in romantic relationships as well. Here's a little ditty from our staff. If you're depending on someone to fix you or fill a need, and in any context, it's a warning sign of codependency. There you go. In all relationships, processing your own experiences with a group, significant other, family member, friends, etc., that can be codependency. Your relationship isn't an island. You need many voices. This is something I want you to hear. In relationship, you need to have other people. Talk to other people. You need to have your trusted group of friends that you can process things with. If you don't have a trusted group of friends, or even if you do have a trusted group of friends, get a counselor. Someone that you pay, that you can say anything to, and they promise that they will just keep it to themselves and help you process it. We cannot do this on our own, but we do this, and with that, we think we're in a relationship. Oh, we're on an island. They're my person now. They're the only person I can process things with, but now I have issues in our relationship because we're two broken people, and now it's difficult and hard, but I have no one to talk to because I can't talk to them about it because that'll hurt them and it'll hurt me. We can't do it on our own. And so when we get stressed out and we think like we're failing, we go through a shame cycle. It's so bad. I'm spiraling right now thinking about it. We need to have other people in our life that we can process this with. Find other couples that you look up to. Go talk to them. Ask them if you can hang out with them and ask them questions and observe their life. And if they will observe your life and if they'll give you feedback, seek that out. And honestly, if you see a couple that you really love the way that they live out life, like it's not obviously not perfect, but they just do this broken mess so beautifully, go hang out with them and then just try and be like them. Like you won't be them, but learn from them and try and be like them. It's pretty cool. And it's so dicey because it's like some of us come from beautiful homes with fantastic parents and some of us don't. And that shows up in me and Brooke's story a lot. Our family dynamics were so different. We came from two very different families with two very different expressions of what marriage looked like. One family, parents have been married for 40 plus years. The other family is divorce and a lot of other things. So it might not always be that we come from a place where our parents have been the romantic role models that we want. Even if your parents have been married forever, they might not be the romantic role models you want. I would encourage you to seek out others then. But we need to have examples in our life that we can learn from. My hope when we talk about health and relationship is that you would change your expectations. That your expectations wouldn't be, here's something that I think we get caught up on. Tell me if this is true, especially in a Christian context. You get in a relationship and it's 2 weeks in. It's been really fun. You've been holding hands maybe. You go get some food, talking. Then it's 2 weeks in and then they say something that you're kind of like, oh, I don't like that. Oh, and now it starts to get in your head like, should I marry this person? I don't know. They just made that joke and ooh, it made me and 7 other people feel uncomfortable. I don't, but God, they're so godly. Maybe I should marry them. I don't know. I think when it comes to dating in particular, I said this before, but I'll say it again. Your goal shouldn't be, should I marry this person or not? Hot take. I think your goal should be, is this healthy or not? Like I said, if it's healthy, you will naturally progress towards marriage or away from it. And you will know. 2 weeks in, most likely, you will not know. But what you can ask is, has this been healthy? Okay, yes, it has. They made this joke, but we will talk about it. But besides that, it's been pretty good. Let's keep taking steps forward and see what happens. Seek out health. Seek out health. Am I doing healthy? Am I doing okay? Are you healthy? Are you doing okay? Are we healthy? Are we doing okay? Great. Let's move forward. Oh, we're not? Something's off with me right now? Well, let's check. Does it have to do with the dynamics of our relationship? Oh, it is? Well, maybe we should take a step back. That sounds really hard and scary. I don't know. What would help us to do that? Probably vulnerability. Hey. Thank you. I love transitions. Except for, never mind. Alan was cracking jokes about transition lenses the other day. No shame if you have them. I think I kind of want to try them. Okay. Vulnerability. The question is, what does healthy vulnerability look like? The first thing that came to mind when we talked about this is a Brene Brown thing, and she says that clear is kind. When we're talking about vulnerability, it can be so hard to try and be clear. And I want you to hear this is some of the best advice my dad's ever given me. And I was sitting there and I was in a relationship and I was trying to figure out what to do. And he calls me Christopher. So he says, Christopher, before you seek out any kind of action, seek out understanding. And as you move to a place of understanding, let that understanding move you into action. Guys, clear is kind. We can't actually figure out what to do in our relationships if we can't figure out how to articulate how we feel and what we need. And if we can't do that and figure out how to communicate that to our partner, then we're not going to be able to actually do anything. Clear is kind. We got to figure out. And so where does that start? Where does it start? It actually doesn't start in communication with your partner. It starts in personal communication with yourself and with Jesus. Vulnerability starts with vulnerability with Jesus. He's the one that literally died for us, literally said, you are worthy, literally said, I am your foundation. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am just so for you. There's nothing that you can do that can separate me from the love that I have for you. But if we can't learn to be vulnerable with Jesus, and let alone be vulnerable with ourselves, there's no way we're going to learn how to be vulnerable with a partner. And so it starts with learning to be vulnerable with Jesus. And what does that look like? It looks like just putting in the work, praying, seeking out different resources. We're going to post after this. The staff has collected different resources. We got a lot of books that have helped us out. We got podcasts. We got sermons. We got all this. Start to seek out these different things. Read your Bible. I know a lot of times we say hey, reading your Bible isn't like a temperature gauge of what your relationship with Jesus. It really isn't. But I will say reading your Bible is a fantastic way to know what Jesus thinks about you. So I would encourage you to do it. Not because it's a legality thing or you're a better Christian if you do it. You'll just get to know Jesus more, which is cool and healthy, actually. Something that really helped me and Brooke out when we were learning how to be vulnerable, we had a lot of conflict in our relationship. We just process differently. Me and Brooke in a lot of ways are like complete opposites. And so we process differently, we think differently, we approach relationship differently. Man, we were doing a Strength Finders thing last year with staff, and the person that was leading it through us, she was meeting with us individually after, and she's like, so I looked at you and Brooke's thing, and good luck. So thank you. That's encouraging. Like a good Christian boy said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So is that a challenge? Challenge accepted. We will be the best couple in the world. All right. Now, something we learned, because we were dealing with so much conflict, was that when you engage in conflict, if you are approaching conflict as me versus you, it's gonna be a battle every time. But if you change your relationship with conflict to me and my partner versus the conflict, it's a game changer. So I'll just use this as an example. This is not a real example, but it's the one that's coming to my head right now. Say me and Brooke, when we were engaged, we're trying to pick a date for our wedding. And say I wanted it to be December 2nd and she wanted it to be December 8th. If we were just going back and forth saying, you know what, it's December 2nd, it's the best date. 2's the best number and I'm gonna remember it, so we should do December 2nd. And she's like, no, 8's the best number. Like, I just love 8. It looks like an infinity sign put up forward. We should do that. And we just kept going back and forth, trying to prove our point and prove how much I'm right and how much she's wrong. We're just gonna keep butting heads. But once we figured out that we're a team and that there's something that's against us right now, which is the conflict, we can come together and say, all right, hey, here's my point of view, here's your point of view. How do we together figure out how we combat this conflict that we have? So let me give you my reasons for why the 2nd is the best date. And then she'll give me her reasons why the 8th is the best date. And we'll sit here and we'll talk and we'll compromise and then we'll choose the 8th. Really, we both wanted to get married on the 2nd and we had to get married on the 8th. So that's what it is. And the 8th is great because now it's our anniversary. Conflict is not me versus you, but it's me and you versus the conflict. If you can start to learn how to figure that out, that will actually help resolve a lot of your conflict. Not just in romantic relationships, but all relationships. Do you see that theme? The things that work in romantic relationships usually work in most relationships. When it comes to vulnerability, there's a couple things we wanted to get across. One, it's okay to be emotional for guys and for girls. For whatever reason, our culture says that girls are super emotional and guys need to be stoic. Or because now we live in a world, for better or for worse, and I'm not making a stance on that, that is like flipping gender norms and all that, which is fine. Now it's like, oh, girls can't be emotional and guys should be emotional. And all of that, there's not like a right or wrong way to do it. Emotion is good and it's in us. So we need to learn how to engage it. So my guys out there, whether you feel like you're too emotional or you're not emotional enough, you got to do the work to figure out what is a healthy way for me to express my emotions. And for my girls out there that maybe have been told their whole life, you're too emotional. I've had strong women in my life. And it frustrates me to no end when women who are strong and stand up for what they are experiencing or they're feeling get just labeled as emotional and it gets discredited. And so us as a society has to learn how to embrace strong women. And all my women out here, you're strong. So I just want you to hear, like, emotion is good. And we need to learn how to have a good and healthy relationship with it. Now, emotion can get out of hand. If y'all watch Love is Blind. Actually, I think, okay, I'm gonna encourage our whole community to watch Love is Blind. Here's why. One, it's entertaining, trashy TV. Two, I want you to hear this. It is a fantastic display of unhealthy emotion. On both sides, men and women. But I will say, what frustrates me is that, and this goes back to what I was just talking about, what frustrates me is every conversation I hear about it is saying the women are crazy, the men are just as crazy. And we have, and if our community can't get away from just blaming any problem on a relationship because a woman is emotional and crazy, we will not move forward in relationships. We gotta do the work to understand what it looks like to be healthy emotionally. And what does that look like? It looks like self-reflection. It looks like processing. It looks like having multiple conversations with different people. Not putting all your stuff out there with everybody, but knowing that you have safe people that you can actually process things with. And then when you come into a certain conversation, you're not just coming into it with these raw, untapped emotions that you haven't dealt with or even figured out are there. So then when you start to have a conversation, you can actually work through it. And so for me and Brooke, one of the things we had to learn is that our emotions play out in different ways and we communicate in different ways. And so we've had to learn how to articulate what we need and say, oh, yes, I want to talk about this, but I actually need to think about it for a little bit. Can I sit in that for a little bit and then can we come back to it? Absolutely. Fantastic. Some people, like I come from a family where we'll just talk about it, boom, right there on the spot. But I am an internal processor, so it's always difficult for me. But I was more on the side of things where it's like, we're going to talk about it quickly, and Brooke was more on the sides of we're going to sit and wait on it. And so for us, we had to learn that those are two different ways to come at conflict and conversation and vulnerability. But if we didn't actually understand where we each were coming from, we would have just been sitting butting heads, feeling like forever we could never have communication or conversation. If you're not doing the work to understand the way you communicate, the way you process, the way you feel emotions, you won't know what you're bringing into the relationship. And y'all will probably be shooting shots you're missing left and right because you won't know where the target is. That makes sense? Great ways to do that. Tools we got right now. Christian culture is real big on the Enneagram. Dig into it. I would say, honestly, this has been the best thing for me and Brooke's marriage. I'm not even exaggerating. For us just getting language, this is why. Not because it's the Enneagram and it's magic and it's special. We just needed language to be on the same page to say what we were feeling. And so when I could go to this resource and say, this is how I'm feeling and this is why, where I wasn't able to articulate it before, she can now read that and get a glimpse into my world and vice versa. There is tools out there for y'all. But if y'all are doing relationship on an island, you're not gonna know where those tools are. Hop off the island, come talk to us. We love to give you resources. Okay. I gotta hurry this up. This is a great piece from Joyce on our team. For her and Garrett, they, and this isn't just them, this is actually a big thing, but the way they use it, I think, is really cool. A lot of times there's teaching on the different spaces, realms of vulnerability. And a lot of times we put them into 4 quadrants, and they are emotional vulnerability, relational vulnerability, and this is relational vulnerability is just a marker of your community around you. Spiritual vulnerability and physical vulnerability. And the way that this is taught is when you start dating or even just talking or seeing someone, for the relationship to be healthy, you kind of need all those 4 realms of vulnerability to kind of be escalating at the same rate. So if you are at a certain place in spiritual vulnerability, your physical vulnerability and emotional vulnerability and relational vulnerability should match that. But as soon as one of those is off, then it makes it way harder to relate in any of those other ways of vulnerability. And so that's why a lot of times, and we see this play out a lot of times in our culture, in where physical vulnerability goes way up real fast. And so now that's become the most important thing about our relationship. So there's no way we can talk about anything else, because every conversation is going to be about physicality. Or every time we hang out, we're just going to make out or do more. Because now physicality has become the most important thing and the way that we are most vulnerable with each other. But what's wild is in Christian cultures, we have these little things that Mike liked to coin spiritual one-night stands. Y'all are laughing because you've done it. You stay up till 4 a.m. and you talk about all the deep down spiritual things going on in your life. And then you get to the next morning and you're like, oh my God, did I just share way too much with that person? I guess we better get married now. They know everything. Does that make sense though? When we're in relationship, I don't want you to hear this as like, oh, we need to always be just fighting to make sure that these vulnerabilities are staying level. But what you need to use them is as like a temperature gauge and see and check in and say, all right, hey, where are we at? And it's just a great sign of how you're doing in healthy vulnerability. If you can look and say, hey, our relational levels are stable. And what I love is the way that Joyce and Garrett use this. I'm just going to read the text Joyce sent. She said, we found it so helpful that we literally did a monthly check-in in these areas of our life. It was helpful measuring how we could spur each other on to do things like spend more time with other friends, communicate more clearly with each other, and about our needs. We called them temperature checks, since the way I'd first learned of it was through a metaphor of the 4 thermometers. If you're in a relationship, I would encourage you to have some temperature checks. Where are we at? Are we going too far in one of these? What's that look like? The other thing I want to encourage you in this is be where you're at in a relationship. This is what I mean by that. If you're dating, date. If you're engaged, be engaged. If you're married, be married. You don't got to act like you're married if you're dating. But for whatever reason, we get so caught up that marriage has to be the best thing in the world, that we got to make it look like this in dating. That is so unhealthy. And that's actually where you start to see some of this codependency that I talked about earlier play out. Be where you're at. Guys, dating is fun. Have fun with it. Enjoy each other. Enjoy time with each other. Dating should be fun. It's not always fun, but it should be fun. Be where you're at. The other thing I gotta talk about with vulnerability is the line, the physical line, right? We get this question all the time. How far is too far? Grant told me to say that below the eyebrows is too far. Then someone else said, above the knees is too far. So you just can only play footsie. Yo, that's not the right answer. Oh my gosh. When it comes to physicality, that can be so difficult to talk about. Here's the deal. We all have different histories. We all have different things that we're bringing into it. Full disclosure, for me and Brooke, a big thing for us was I had gone farther sexually than she had previously in relationship. So we had to work through that. And we had to talk through what that looked like. And for us, that's a part of why reconciliation was so much a part of our story, because we had to figure out a new normal for the both of us going forward. Because we both had unhealthy relationships with sex. Whether that is an unhealthy relationship where it's all we think about because we don't want to go too far, or unhealthy relationship because it's all we think about because that's all we want to do. And we had to figure out, what's a new relationship would this look like for us? But that came with time. That wasn't the first conversation we had. It came as the relationship moved forward. And we started to talk about these things, and our vulnerability levels were kind of rising with the different areas. When it comes to how far is too far, if you're asking that question, you're probably asking the wrong question. It's not about just getting up to the line and not crossing it. If we're asking the question, how far is too far, we're probably in some sort of relationship with Jesus, and then we probably need to check where we're at with Jesus. And walk with him and talk about it with each other, with the people in your life, and figure out what's healthy for you and for your partner. Sex adds complications to relationship. So if you are not at a place where you're ready for those complications, you probably shouldn't do it. And I got news for you. Sex is still complicated when you're married. What? You have to learn how to talk about it. And that doesn't just mean figuring out what the line is. It means figuring out, where am I healthy? Where am I unhealthy? And how am I seeking out health? Does that make sense? Okay. Remember, this is all opinions, so someone else could tell you something else. All right. Now to the piece we've all been waiting for. Breakups. Hey, let's go. Okay, here's the deal. It might seem weird to talk about breakups in a relationship talk, but hopefully if we're seeking out to get married at some point, only one of them is going to work out. So if you date more, if you don't just marry the first person you date, then a breakup will be a part of your life. So we need to actually talk about it and know how to engage with it. I think our community doesn't like breakups. I think our community doesn't like to talk about it, doesn't like to engage with it, doesn't like the thought of it. And I get it. It can be really difficult because honestly, when you're in a community like this, or a big community or any community, your relationship can be in a fishbowl. And everyone's watching you and seeing you. And so it can be very difficult to figure out how to break up with someone or what you do when your feelings aren't mutual anymore. Mike gave us a great example a couple weeks ago of what it looks like to break up with somebody. So I'm not going to tell you how to do that. You can listen to a couple weeks ago's sermon where he talked about going to a public coffee shop. I guess I will tell you. Going to a public coffee shop, you sit down, you have a clear conversation about what's happening, and then you leave. That was basically it. You don't linger on it. I want us to remember that the goal of dating isn't just to get married. It's to be healthy. So if you're not healthy and you're in a relationship that's toxic and not good for you or the other person, it's okay to break up. And even if it's not toxic and it's just not what you're looking for, it's okay to break up. I think we get so scared about either hurting ourselves or hurting the other person, but this is where it all starts with where's our security and where's our health coming from. If our security and health is coming from Jesus and we know that, then we know we'll be okay. And we know that they will be okay as well. Right? But when it's not coming from that, then all the other thoughts come in. Oh, well, if we break up, but we're on the same leadership team. We're in the same classes. Oh, we're going to see each other at the inn on Tuesday. Oh, all these things, it's not going to be okay. We're not going to do it. Oh, how are we going to be able, how's our friends going to, who are they going to choose? Right? This is real thoughts. And it might sound like I'm joking. I'm not. This is real. If we are looking and seeking out health and not just looking and seeking out to get married or not get married, we'll be able to make decisions out of health and for health. Not just feeling like I'm going to let someone else down and myself down. We need to learn how to live within boundaries. This goes back to the health and vulnerability. You need to be able to know what your boundaries are and what you are expecting out of relationship and what the other person is expecting out of relationship. And if those expectations aren't being met, then you need to talk about it and you need to communicate. And if you try to work on those expectations and you continue to figure out new ones and move forward, fantastic. But if those expectations continue to not be met, it's okay to break up. Something that's really fascinating, another thing that got brought up is Christian, if you're a Christian, dating someone who's a Christian or not a Christian. I'm not gonna tell you what's the right answer in this. It's your life. I've seen it work out where people that are of different faith get married and date or whatever, and it works out great, fantastic. A lot of times, I've seen it work out where they do that and they stay within their own beliefs. I've seen that happen where they get married and then one person then moves into the same beliefs as the other person. I've seen it all over the spectrum. What I will tell you is if Jesus is the most important thing in your life and he is the center of your life and he is what you are living for and your purpose and your passion, if you are dating or in a relationship with someone that's not their passion, it's gonna be way more hard. So I just encourage you to keep that in mind and know what you're getting into and know what you're about and where you're trying to go. Does that make sense? And remember, like, if you're dating, you're not married. So you can break up. It sounds like a crazy idea, but it's hard for some people. It's hard for a lot of people. Okay, so say we break up, and now what? Trust me, I promise we're coming to an end, so hang with me here. Just like some relationships. I don't know why that people are like, ooh, some relationships end. Okay, when you break up, there is no right or wrong way to grieve a breakup. So what we find is a lot of times sometimes people will break up and they will just be over it right away. And they'll feel guilty, like they should feel worse about it. But if you're over it, then you're over it. Sometimes people will break up and they will take like a year to get over it. There's not like just this perfect timeline. And what works for one person isn't going to work for another person. But I feel like I'm beating a drum, but I want you to hear it. It's about seeking out health. So if you break up because you're unhealthy, start to seek out health. And if you are caught up on a relationship, dig into what that is, what was missing, what's going on there. And one of the things that Void talks about is like when you break up, for the majority of us at the beginning of it, there's gonna be things that we miss immediately about that person because they are such a big part of our life. And just because you miss something about someone doesn't mean you have to go jump back into the relationship. If it wasn't healthy, and you break up, yes, there will probably still be things that you miss, but I would encourage you to seek out health. Process it. This is why we need other people. We can't just be on an island. So when we break up, we gotta have the right people to go talk to about it. So then when we go talk about somebody and we have a space that we can actually process what went on, we have people that we can share all of our thoughts and feelings with about it. So then we're not going and sharing all of our thoughts and feelings with everybody. Because something that's really important when you are in a relationship with somebody that's in the same community as you is how do you honor that person in and outside of the relationship? And how do you honor yourself? Taylor brought up something really great. Honor and respect are not the same things. Respect is something that's earned, and honor is something that's freely given. And so when we break up, you might have lost respect for somebody because they treated you like dirt, but that doesn't mean that now you have to dishonor them moving forward. And so I'd love for our community to learn and do that introspection of what does it look like to honor somebody else and honor ourselves within and outside of relationships. Because if we're asking that question, then when we're going to talk to that random person that asks how we're doing, oh, I heard you just broke up with such and such. How are you doing with that? And if I'm asking, okay, is this honoring to that person and to me, I'm not just gonna go spout off on every bad thought I'm having about that person. But I can start sharing, this is how I'm doing. Thanks for asking. Our community, I think, we need to continue to ask that question. What does it look like to honor the people in our lives? Inside and outside of relationship. What does it look like to honor our exes? And I want to be careful because there's some people that have been really hurt by relationship. And so I want to stress what Taylor said. Respect and honor are not the same thing. And even in that, when we are honoring somebody, we are not just honoring their actions, we are honoring the person they are created in Jesus and what Jesus sees in them. And honestly, it's also honoring to ourselves when we work from that space. Because your identity also isn't tied up in them. And so your worth isn't tied up in what the product of that relationship was. Your worth is so much more than that. So I want us to continue to learn how to honor ourselves and each other. If we break up, that doesn't mean the relationship was a waste of time. Some of the relationships I had that haven't worked out have been some of the most meaningful relationships I've had in my life. They weren't a waste of time. Were they difficult? Was there a lot of grief and sadness at the end of them? Yes, but they were not a waste of time. Just because you break up with someone or you date someone or you go through a relationship, it doesn't mean it's a waste of time. And I think sometimes we are in relationships that have lasted longer than they should have, and we're scared to end them because we're scared that, oh, well, I don't want to have this whole time be a waste. It's not. You can celebrate the good things that happen in that and know that it's time for us to move on. When anything ends, we need to learn how to lament and grieve it. So if you're sad, be sad. And that's okay. And finally, I want us to hear I just want us to hear that we can move forward in our life after relationships. All of this comes down to health, to me. All of this comes down to the expression of what God is doing in our lives and the ways that we are learning about who we are in the world. And along the way, sometimes someone starts running with us. This is going to be my last thing I say. The goal in life isn't just to get married. The goal is to know Jesus, live out a purpose. Figure what that is, run that path, and let's get out of the mindset of like, oh, I'm just going to shoot every shot at every person and then maybe we'll get it. If we start shooting our shot and where we want to go in life, we'll probably start seeing that there's someone running alongside of us to that same place. And then maybe along the way, you start holding hands, physically and metaphorically. And then you start running that race together. My sister gave me this. I'm gonna end with this. You can get in advice. This is such a black church thing. I've said I'm closing 5 times. I am gonna end with this. My sister said this to me, and I think it's really important as college students. She told me this when I was your age, and I hate saying that. It makes me feel old. But she said, Chris, you can get in a relationship and like get married when you're young, and that's fine. But then your whole 20s, you're gonna be learning life together, and you're gonna be changing. Physically, our frontal lobe doesn't finish developing till 25. So you're gonna be developing and growing and changing. And if you want to go down that journey, by all means do it. But know that it's gonna be a journey that you're changing a lot in. And you're getting new dreams, and you're getting new passions, and you're not gonna be the same person 3 years into marriage than you were at the beginning of it. Or you can wait till after that, when you're in your 30s or late 20s or 40s or whatever, and you figured out your career and you figured out who you are a little bit more, and you find someone who's on the same path as you, and you guys decide to do life together. And then you will both change and grow, and you won't stay the same in 3 years into marriage. It's all gonna be different and change. You just gotta know who you are and what you want and where you're going. And then decide if you're gonna do that with somebody else or not. Let's keep talking about this. I didn't answer all your questions, but I did talk a lot, so that's good. I hope that you keep engaging in this. I hope that this is the start of a conversation for us. Thank you for listening, and happy relationships. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you that you're in relationship with us, that you're for us, and you're excited about us. I pray that this wasn't too long, and I pray that people were engaged. Not like engagement, but engaged. We love you, Jesus, and thank you that you love us. Amen.